and good morning, everyone. At the outset, I must thank Team ASCC for inviting me for this very important function, and I have a great deal of faith and respect for the Team ASCC in whatever I have seen them doing. My greetings to all present this morning. I'm not really an expert on the subject of EI for children. One would need to be a qualified psychologist to be called an expert. For that reason, I was a bit reluctant to accept the invitation, but when I browsed through the brochure, I thought that I could share a real life story or two here. From what I have heard and experienced, emotional intelligence is the core capability that determines the level of success a person will have. And it has been very widely acknowledged now, far more than IQ, for which a threshold level would be sufficient for a job or a role in an organization. There are training programs on EI available for the grown-up people, but here we are talking about children in their formative years and setting up a good foundation or apni Niev for them early on in their lives. Therefore, it's a brilliant initiative by ASCC to have come up with a program like this for kids. I think EI is a very important aspect for them, as a number of kids today seem to have attention deficit problem. Blame it on the information deluge that they are exposed to these days. Therefore, attention training assumes great importance. Many children seem to have developed conditions of ADHD, even if they are not diagnosed so. So one such story I must narrate here. This is the story of my relative's son. And this is the example which I thought I'll narrate here. He had attention deficit. Apparently, I don't think he was ever diagnosed so. Don't want to name him, so let's call him Vijay. A very excitable child. Vijay would never stay with one game. He tended to get distracted. If he noticed another activity happening, he would jump to it immediately, leave everything as it is. He was not good in studies also. His elder brother was a meritorious student as against this one. Vijay was very thin and wiry boy. He didn't seem to be growing either. So I mentioned this to his father and advised him to comfort the boy and slow him down a bit and avoid exciting him too much. And I think his father took the advice and he was convinced. And now this boy is a well-developed and confident young man. At that time, we didn't know very much about ADHD, and neither did we know much about EI, which is directly correlated with attention training. Neither did we know about the techniques for developing EI. The good news is that the neuroplasticity of the brain, which can change substantially through training and suggestion. I think for cultivating self-guided attention, one needs to develop one's EI muscle, metaphorically speaking, or one's prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that processes information and focuses attention. By developing PFC or prefrontal cortex, one learns to be involved in the present and consciously make choices and be able to consciously guide one's own attention, deal with one's emotion. So there are techniques for developing PFC, prefrontal cortex, and mindfulness motivation is one such means. And there are many such exercises which experts have, and we have been benefited by the Team ASCC's training effort for our organization, doing those interactive sessions, and I've seen the benefit. PFC is the command center of the brain that rationalizes the situation, takes the control away from the limbic system and amygdala. It relieves you of stress and focuses you. Training in EI helps to do that, to develop that capability. We know that EI does involve self-awareness, self-management, social skills, empathy, etc., etc. But for all of these, a very important capability is to get a hold on the whirling and unstable mind Everything else tends to fall in place if one has attention control. And it comes through training in emotional intelligence, sensing, identifying, and rationalizing one's emotions, strengthens with the prefrontal cortex. And in turn, this has a powerful effect of being able to guide and orchestrate one's emotions as per the need of the hour. So some of the people, they have good level of EI from childhood through their respective healthy environment and upbringing. Others need to be trained in it. And a lot depends upon the parental skills and the environment. So here, let me also come to the story number 2 that I want to narrate here today. It so happened that Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, a renowned teacher from India, came across a sports team at the airport. And the coach requested Sadhguru for a motivational talk for the team. Our man asked the coach. He said, I'm just curious to know as to how do you motivate the team before a match? The coach mumbled something like playing for the team or love for one's country, patriotism and all that. And Sadhguru said, what about the attention on the damn ball? I think he was right. We had a similar experience with our ship's football team many, many years ago, in which I told something on similar lines to the team. And I can say that with a lot of pride that our team that day pulled off a 5-0 victory on the opponent, the opposite team. Think about a class after a game period of children in the school. When they are back to the class, attention is left behind lingering, bouncing, rolling with the ball. So it is about attention on what we do in that moment, or being in the present, or living consciously. Keeping the control with the prefrontal cortex, the rational mind, the CEO, and not the limbic system or amygdala. So I can clearly recall that in my childhood, I didn't have the kind of emotional intelligence, but I had a friend who had. And I can recall that he was a meritorious student and he was good in every other activities, in the games too, in the other curricular activities. I can look back and understand now why. He had a good emotional intelligence. It simply amounts to the ability of consciously deciding what's good for one, rather than letting oneself to be guided by the sheer impulsiveness or emotions. This aspect was shown in the famous marshmallow experiment too. In that experiment, the children who could think and curb the urgency of immediate gratification were found to be more successful in their lives and career. So it's about dominance of the thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex, and it requires mindfulness for building up the EI muscle or the prefrontal cortex. Some of the kids are hyperactive, some others are not excitable and lethargic. Both these symptoms aren't good for growth. These have been called as Rajasic and Tamasic, respectively, in the Indian tradition. Then there are the balanced ones, very balanced, and that is a result of a developed EI or sattvic nature in the Indian culture. So there is a lot to relate here with the traditional Indian yoga tradition, but that can be set aside for another day. The hyperactive children with shifting attention are often thin and wiry body frame with reduced physical development, less confidence. They are irritable and insecure. Their physiological process also sort of not focused and stable for growth. A developed PFC differentiates us from animals who are instinctive, impulsive, and somewhat pre-programmed. I like the Team ASCC's approach of interactive and procedural training rather than a mere declarative training to bring about behavioral change. So it is the procedural training wherein we go through some interactive sessions and exercises which promote development of the prefrontal cortex. And addition of that with a Mindfulness meditation is, I think, it gives you the shot in the arm for building up your emotional muscle. The team ASCC has a very experienced and highly educated psychologist in the team. So that's great. This fills my heart with a lot of hope for the kids who are going to benefit from this curriculum. I have browsed through and found that an important aspect of this curriculum is the strategies for dealing with the limitations and restrictions imposed by COVID. This is the perfect timing for the launch of this curriculum, and I wish you all the success to the team ASCC and all those who are involved with it. Thank you so much.